In the bustling arteries of 1970s America, street life pulsed with a rhythm that was equal parts grit and glamour, a decade caught between the fading echoes of the 1960s counterculture and the looming shadow of economic uncertainty. Picture this, it's 1973, and you're strolling down a sidewalk in New York City's Times Square, where the neon lights flicker like over-caffeinated fireflies, advertising everything from peep shows to the latest Broadway flop. The air smells of hot dogs from street vendors who've mastered the art of turning mystery meat into a culinary staple, and the sidewalks are crowded with folks hustling to make ends meet in an era when inflation was skyrocketing faster than a disco ball at Studio 54. It wasn't all doom and gloom though. There was a certain ironic charm to it, like how people complained about gas shortages while driving gas-guzzling muscle cars that could outrun a cheetah but sip fuel like a teenager at a soda fountain. Street life in the 1970s was a tapestry woven from the threads of social change, economic upheaval, and cultural explosion. The Vietnam War had just wrapped up in 1975, leaving a generation of veterans wandering the pavements, some with medals pinned to their chests and others with invisible scars that made panhandling seem like a logical career pivot. You'd see them on corners in cities like San Francisco or Chicago, sharing stories that mixed heroism with the absurdity of it all. Imagine a vet recounting dodging bullets in the jungle only to come home and dodge potholes in Detroit. It was a time when the streets served as both a safety net and a trapdoor, where opportunity knocked but often forgot to leave a forwarding address. Let's zoom in on the mornings. Dawn in a 1970s American city was like a hungover alarm clock, reluctant to fully wake up. In Los Angeles, the streets would stir with joggers in polyester tracksuits, their outfits so shiny they could double as emergency flares. The smog hung low, courtesy of leaded gasoline and factories that treated the atmosphere like a personal ashtray. Commuters piled into subways or buses, rubbing shoulders with strangers in a way that made personal space a luxury item. In New York, the subway cars were graffiti-covered canvases, turned into rolling art galleries by kids with spray cans who saw blank metal as an invitation to express themselves. It was almost poetic, if you ignored the fact that half the time the trains ran late because someone had expressed themselves right over the track signals. Workaday life on the streets revolved around the hustle. Blue-collar workers in steel-toed boots clomped down sidewalks in industrial hubs like Pittsburgh or Cleveland, where the Rust Belt was just starting to show its first signs of oxidation. Factories belched smoke, and the streets nearby were lined with diners serving greasy spoons of eggs and bacon, where conversations flowed about union strikes and the latest from Watergate. Nixon's resignation in 1974 had everyone chuckling bitterly, like, well, at least the crooks in Washington are getting caught, unlike the ones picking pockets on Fifth Avenue. Unemployment was creeping up, hitting 9% by the mid-decade, so street vendors popped up like entrepreneurial mushrooms, selling everything from knockoff watches to bootleg cassettes of Led Zeppelin albums. It was a gig economy before the term existed, where a guy with a hot dog cart could be his own boss, dodging health inspectors with the finesse of a matador. Fashion on the streets was a spectacle in itself, a rebellion against the buttoned-up 1950s. Bell-bottom jeans flared out like inverted funnels, paired with platform shoes that added inches to your height and subtracted years from your ankle stability. Women sported miniskirts or maxi dresses, depending on whether they were channeling Twiggy or a flower child hangover. In Harlem or South Side Chicago, Afros rose proudly, a statement of black pride amid the ongoing civil rights movement's evolution. The streets were catwalks for the masses. You'd see a businessman in a wide lapel suit rushing past a hippie in tie-dye, both oblivious to how ridiculous they looked to each other. Humor lurked in the mismatches, like the time a Wall Street type tripped over his own bell-bottoms while chasing a cab, proving that even capitalism couldn't outrun bad fashion choices. Music was the soundtrack of the streets, blaring from boomboxes that were essentially portable parties on shoulder straps. Disco fever hit in the late 70s, with hits like Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees turning sidewalks into impromptu dance floors. In New Orleans, jazz spilled out from Bourbon Street bars, mixing with the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and the shouts of street performers juggling fire for tips. Punk rock was brewing in underground scenes in New York, where kids with safety pins in their noses congregated on the Bowery, sneering at the mainstream. Rap was just emerging in the Bronx. Block parties where DJs scratched records on turntables powered by street lamp electricity. Talk about resourceful, like MacGyver with a microphone. The streets amplified these sounds, turning urban canyons into echo chambers of cultural revolution. Food carts and corner stores were the unsung heroes of street sustenance. In Philadelphia, cheesesteak vendors grilled onions and steak with the precision of surgeons, slathering it on rolls that could absorb a small oil spill. New York's pizza slices were folded and devoured on the go, grease dripping like a badge of honor. Ethnic enclaves added flavor. Little Italy's streets smelled of garlic and tomato sauce, while Chinatowns buzzed with dim sum carts and fortune cookie wisdom. It was democratic dining. Rich and poor alike queued up for a falafel in San Francisco or a taco in East LA, where the only class divide was between those who liked extra hot sauce and those who regretted it later. The humor? Well, street food was cheap, but the heartburn was complimentary, a reminder that nothing in life is truly free. Social issues loomed large on the pavements. The women's liberation movement had women marching down avenues, demanding equal pay and rights, their placards waving like flags in a feminist parade. Gay rights gained momentum after the Stonewall riots in 1969, with pride parades turning streets into rainbows of defiance by the mid-70s. But inequality persisted. In inner cities, poverty carved deep ruts. Crime rates soared. New York subways were notorious for muggings, leading to the rise of vigilante groups and the infamous guardian angels in red berets, patrolling like urban superheroes minus the capes. It was darkly funny how the media hyped Son of Sam in 1977, turning serial killer hunts into tabloid entertainment, while everyday folks just wanted to walk home without drama. Environmental awareness was budding, too. The first Earth Day in 1970 had set the stage, and by the 70s, streets saw anti-pollution protests. In Los Angeles, the smog was so thick you could chew it, prompting carpool lanes and the odd-even gas rationing during the 1973 oil crisis. People lined up at pumps, grumbling about OPEC like it was a personal enemy, their massive Cadillacs idling ironically. Bicycles made a comeback, zipping through traffic with a smug eco-friendliness, though helmet laws were as rare as common sense in rush hour. Nightlife transformed the streets into a glittering underworld. In Miami, Cuban immigrants infused Calle Ocho with salsa rhythms, streets alive with conga lines and cafecito stands. Las Vegas's Strip was a neon overdose, where gamblers spilled out from casinos onto sidewalks, pockets lighter but spirits high, or low, depending on the blackjack table. In smaller towns, main streets dimmed early, but in metropolises, the party never stopped. CBGB in New York birthed bands like the Ramones, with punks slamming into each other on sticky floors while the street outside hummed with taxis honking like impatient geese. Transportation defined mobility on the streets. Muscle cars like the Ford Mustang or Chevy Camaro roared down highways, but city streets favored compacts as gas prices bit. Public transit was a mixed bag. Buses in Boston or trolleys in San Francisco carried the masses, often overcrowded and overdue for a bath. Hitchhiking was still a thing, a remnant of the 60s, where thumb-out wanderers shared rides with strangers, swapping stories that ranged from profound to profoundly weird. Air travel was democratizing, but for most, the streets were the real highway, potholes and all. Youth culture dominated the sidewalks. Skateboarders in California turned concrete waves into playgrounds, ollieing over curbs while wearing Vans that looked like they'd been through a war. Arcades popped up, with Pac-Man gobbling quarters faster than inflation ate savings. Street games like stickball in Brooklyn or double dutch in Harlem kept kids occupied, away from the temptations of drugs that were flooding in. Cocaine and heroin epidemics hit hard, turning some corners into open-air markets. Anti-drug campaigns like Just Say No were years away, so PSAs on TV warned vaguely, while streets taught harsh lessons. Immigration reshaped neighborhoods. Waves from Latin America and Asia filled streets with new languages and cuisines. In Texas border towns, Mexican influences blended with American, streets echoing with mariachi and country twang. Vietnamese refugees post-war added faux shops to urban landscapes, their resilience a quiet counterpoint to the era's turbulence. Economic woes colored everything. The stock market crash of 1973 to 74 left investors reeling, and streets reflected it. Foreclosure signs on homes, lines at soup kitchens. Yet, innovation sprouted. Personal computers were emerging, though streets saw typewriters in offices more than keyboards. ATMs appeared mid-decade, changing how people interacted with banks. No more teller chit-chat, just cold cash from a wall. Sports spilled onto streets. After games, fans in jerseys flooded pavements, celebrating or commiserating. Baseball's 1970s saw the Big Red Machine in Cincinnati, streets alive with cheers. Basketball's ABA-NBA merger brought flair, with Afros and dunks inspiring streetballers in playgrounds. Media influenced perceptions. TV shows like All in the Family mirrored street debates on racism and politics, while films like Taxi Driver captured the seedy underbelly. Newspapers hawked on corners screamed headlines about Patty Hearst or the Jonestown tragedy, vendors yelling, "Extra! Extra!" like it was still the 1920s. Health fads hit the streets. Jogging became a craze, thanks to books like The Complete Book of Running, turning parks into tracks. Fast food chains like McDonald's expanded, golden arches beckoning from every corner, promising convenience at the cost of waistlines. Weather played its part. Blizzards in the Northeast buried streets, turning them into ski slopes for the unprepared. Heat waves in the South had people fanning themselves on stoops, sharing iced tea and gossip. As the decade closed, streets hinted at the 80s excess. Reagan's election in 1980 loomed, but in 1979, disco demolition in Chicago symbolized the end of an era. Fans rioting on a baseball field, as if burning records could erase the polyester past. Street life in 1970s America was a mosaic of resilience and reinvention, where every corner told a story. From the vendor's cry to the siren's wail, it was a decade that walked the line between chaos and creativity, leaving footprints that still echo today. And if you listen closely, you might hear a faint chuckle at how we survived it all with bell-bottoms intact. Diving deeper into the urban pulse, consider the role of public spaces. Parks like Central Park in New York were havens amid concrete, but in the 70s, they grappled with decay. Budget cuts left them overgrown, an ironic twist for a city that prided itself on being the Big Apple, now looking a bit wormy. Joggers dodged muggers, and concerts like the Schaefer Music Festival brought crowds, blending rock with the risk of rain or rowdy fans. In Washington, D.C., streets around the mall saw protests against everything from nuclear power to apartheid, placards waving in the wind like leaves in autumn. Small-town streets offered contrast. In places like Topeka, Kansas, Main Street was quieter, with hardware stores and soda fountains where locals discussed grain prices over cherry phosphates. Drive-in theaters dotted rural roads, families parking station wagons to watch Jaws or Star Wars, munching popcorn while mosquitoes buzzed like uninvited critics. The oil crisis hit hard here too, with farmers idling tractors, grumbling about fuel costs in a way that made city slickers' complaints seem petty. Ethnic festivals enlivened streets. In Boston's North End, the Feast of St. Anthony turned alleys into Italian extravaganzas, cannoli vendors competing with sausage stands. Chicago's Polish neighborhoods hosted parades with pierogi and polka, streets closed for dancing that mixed tradition with American flair. Technology trickled in. Pay phones on every corner were lifelines, quarters clinking for calls home. CB radios in trucks crackled with trucker lingo, 10 to 4, good buddy, turning highways into chat rooms on wheels. Crime prevention evolved. Block watches formed, neighbors patrolling with flashlights, a community effort that sometimes worked and sometimes devolved into nosy gossip sessions. Education intersected streets. School busing for desegregation sparked controversies, kids shuttled across town, streets lined with protesters or supporters. After school, streets became playgrounds, with hopscotch chalked on sidewalks or kick-the-can echoing in alleys. Healthcare access varied. Free clinics popped up in hippie enclaves, offering care amid the AIDS scare's precursors. Streets saw ambulances racing, Sirens a constant reminder of urban fragility. Shopping shifted. Malls began drawing crowds from downtown streets, but open-air markets persisted, like Seattle's Pike Place where fish flew through the air like acrobats. Literature and art drew from streets. Graffiti artists like Jean-Michel Basquiat started on walls, their tags evolving into gallery gold. Street poets in cafes recited verses on love and loss, coffee steam rising like inspiration. As inflation peaked at 13.5% in 1980, streets saw bartering, neighbors trading goods, a throwback to simpler times amid modern malaise. In summary, no, wait, keep narrating. The 70s streets were classrooms, battlegrounds, and stages, teaching lessons in survival with a side of satire. Like the guy who invented pet rocks in 1975, proving Americans would buy anything if marketed right. Streets full of fads, from mood rings to streaking, brief flashes of absurdity in a serious decade. Expanding on music, folk remnants from Dylan lingered in Greenwich Village streets, buskers strumming for change. Glam rock with Bowie influenced androgynous looks on avenues. Film crews often blocked streets for shoots like The French Connection, chase scenes turning real traffic into extras. Weather events like the 1978 blizzard paralyzed northeast streets, snowdrifts higher than cars, people skiing to work in a humorous twist. Energy conservation signs on streets urged turn off lights, amid blackouts like New York's 1977 outage, leading to looting and legends. Veterans parades down avenues honored service, but streets also saw anti-war holdouts, a divided nation on display. Feminist bookstores on side streets sold Ms. Magazine, empowering discussions spilling onto sidewalks. LGBTQ+ bars like those in Greenwich Village became safe havens, streets outside buzzing with emerging pride. Environmental cleanups, like Love Canal scandal, highlighted street-level activism against pollution. Sports riots after wins turned streets chaotic, like Philadelphia after the 1974 Stanley Cup. Fast food wars, Burger King challenging McDonald's, streets dotted with drive-thrus. Toy fads like Rubik's Cube in late 70s had kids puzzling on stoops. Cable TV began, but streets still had antenna-topped roofs. Airline deregulation in 1978 made travel cheaper, airports busier, streets leading to them jammed. Disco's demise with Disco Sucks movement saw street bonfires of records. As 1979 ended with the Iran hostage crisis, streets reflected anxiety, flags waving in solidarity. In essence, 1970s American street life was a vibrant, volatile mix, informative in its chaos, humorous in its humanity.